My name's Marta, and in this Red Gamer Tech video I am here with the juiciest of the juiced from the tech world in the last 24 or so hours. So what I have for you today, my friends, well, we're going to kick things off with an alleged Intel Core i7-8086K, and this has also been benchmarked as well, which is super interesting. And then speaking of benchmarks, we have the Ryzen 2700X, which has been reviewed with an X470 motherboard. Now, of course, we've had previous early reviews of the Ryzen 2000 series, but they've all been with previous generation motherboards, but not the case this time around. And then we're going to end things out with a little piece from Sega, who have decided that Nintendo aren't the only ones who can do a mini console, because they have announced the Sega Mega Drive Mini. As I said, however, we're going to kick things off with the 8086K. Now, as I said in the introduction to this particular video, this is an alleged Intel processor, so everything here is rumour and as yet unconfirmed, so do keep that in mind. And this was posted and tested by a member of a Chinese forum. Now, this is allegedly an 40th anniversary, it'd help if I could speak words, that would really be great, wouldn't it, edition SKU. Now, of course, this would not be a first for Intel. They did this with the Pentium G3 258, which of course marked the 20th anniversary of the Pentium processors, and now we're going to be looking at what is potentially another anniversary edition SKU, this time marking 40 years since the 8086 microprocessor. So would kind of fall in line with what Intel have done in the past. So what do we actually know about the chip itself? Well, it does actually have a similar core configuration to the 8700K. So that means 6 cores, 12 threads, and 12 megabytes of L3 cache, and also a TDP of 95 watts, which is exactly the same as the 8700K. However, the clock speeds are where it gets more interesting, as they are currently the fastest for a 6-core Intel processor. It's a base clock of 4 GHz and boosts all the way up to 5.1. And the 5.1 GHz boost is single core, and the all-core boost is rated at 4.4 GHz. And mostly stable at 4.3 GHz, unless you want to crank up the cooling a little bit as well. You'll see that the chip is roughly around 70 degrees Celsius, but when the cores are clocked to 5 GHz, it almost instantly spikes above 95 degrees and almost ends up hitting that 100 degree wall. So if you want to hit that 5.1 GHz, obviously you're going to have to bring some pretty beefy cooling. But if you do have that capability, it does look like this chip can be pushed pretty damn far. Now, according to the user, they were using a Z370 Tomahawk, and they did say that the current BIOS of this particular motherboard did result in some inconsistent performance results, but obviously this is an early sample, and obviously BIOS updates, and the actual motherboard meant for it, that sort of thing. And by that I mean the ones that have more features, that sort of stuff, like we kind of seen with the Ryzen 2000 series. But basically we see no difference essentially in single core performance over the 7700K, but absolutely crushes it in multi-core. So overall, if this is real, as I already said, it would be the fastest 6-core option available on the market. Now obviously whether or not it is real remains to be seen. Intel are probably not going to say yes or no, because if they were to time it for the anniversary release, it would be around June, so we're probably not going to hear anything for quite some time. But if this is real, then we probably can expect to see more leaks and rumours as we approach the expected reveal date. Of course, we have seen numerous leaks for things that eventually were confirmed, like 500X and of course the Ryzen 2000 series itself, all that sort of stuff. So if this remains of the lone one, then it probably isn't real, but it's really hard to say. I mean, this looks pretty legit, but again, it's hard to say. So the timing could also be pretty damn nice for Intel to be like, hey, here's a Z390, and then also draw attention to their 8-core processors, all that sort of stuff. So let me know your thoughts, guys, not only on whether or not you think this is legit, but also if it is legit, what do you think of the specs of this particular processor? It looks pretty damn impressive, but of course it all comes down to price and of course game performance and a lot of other factors that will come into play than just what we've seen here today. But it is a tantalizing preview, to say the least. However, as I said, we're going to move on now to the 2700X. Now, once again, this review comes from the very informative folks over at El Chapuza Informatico. Now, again, apologies if the pronunciation is incorrect. As I said, I don't speak a lick of Spanish. Never had the opportunity to learn it at school, and I don't think I've ever met anyone who speaks Spanish as a first language here. I could be wrong, of course. It's not like you go up to someone and say, "Hi, my name's so-and-so, Spanish is my first language," but you get my point. Regardless, so, in the description below this video, you'll find a link to that article, where you have a wonderful review for the 2700X with the X470 motherboard. Now, they have been a rather reliable source of early reviews for various Ryzen 2000, processors, but of course, I have been a little bit critical of them because while they're great, they have been using the previous generation, the 300 series motherboards, which is fine. Obviously, they do work, but obviously they don't bring the full suite of features to the table. But obviously, that isn't the case here, and they are using the MSI X470 Pro Carbon. Or at least that's what it appears to be. Now, also, which is really, really good here, we actually have gaming benchmarks. So obviously we've seen a pretty nice suite of benchmarks from them before, but we've already seen the AIDA64 ones and latency, and we have seen, for example, that memory latency issues have been resolved with this new chipset. Just for example, we see here that we see it stacking up rather nicely against the 8700K, falling only shortly under it in the results presented, and also faring rather nicely against its predecessors. Obviously, it's got the 1700X, and we've also got the 2600 as well as the 1600, and obviously various i7s as well. But you can see it fares pretty well, coming in at 3rd place. However, the real thing that I want to focus on here is the gaming benchmarks, because that is something that we haven't had previously. So, in Battlefield 1, we'd see it doing pretty damn well for itself. Now this is at full HD and ultra preset, and we have a frame rate of 112.6. So if you actually going to round that up, that would actually be 1113. So it absolutely stomps all over the previous Ryzens. It is a solid 3 processors above the 1700X, as you can see, and you've obviously got the other Ryzen down at the bottom. You know, their score isn't exactly bad. You've still got a score of 99, for example, for the 1700X, but it just goes to show the improvements of the 2700, and it is only at 5 frames below the top Intel CPU. Of course, we have more. We also have Doom, and it does fare less well here. It's coming in at 4th place, falling behind the 8600, 8700, and 7800. But we do still see an impressive score for OpenGL on Ultra of 160. So not too shabby at all. And as you can see, it still does pretty well against its previous generation. And it is only 7 frames behind the 8600K. And of course only 3 frames behind the 8700K. So again, just showing this improvement for this particular processor. And in all honesty, this is a trend that we see across pretty much all of their results. We also see it on Rise of the Tomb Raider as well, with the 2700X scoring 113 frames a second, literally maybe 1 frame behind that of the 8400, and actually scoring massively better again than not only the 8700K, but also the previous generation. Now obviously there's score difference between the 8700K and the 2700X is only a couple of frames, but it is a significant improvement of that over, say for example, the Ryzen 7 1700X and of course the Ryzen 5. Now the last one I want to focus on here is the results for Total Warhammer 2. Now unfortunately there were less chips tested here, but we still see some interesting results. This is for 4K Ultra for the 2700X. Now it is under 30 frames per second, so not particularly brilliant, and we see DX12 taking a hefty hit on the performance as well, but on DX11 it is 27 frames a second, but again 4K Ultra is pretty damn demanding. Obviously sub 30, not brilliant, so not really great for playing 4K on that game, but it does do a little bit better than the 8700K, but we're talking literally a frame, so nothing really to get excited and get out the party poppers about. Anyway, we're going to finish up this particular segment just by saying that overall I have to say the 2700X is looking to be rather impressive. I am hoping to see if we can get our hands on one for you guys so we can have a look ourselves, run our own spate of tests, get a feel for it, all that sort of stuff. But obviously I look forward to seeing way more reviews of the chip and seeing what it can do. But it's looking like a significant improvement over the previous generation in pretty much every way. So thumbs up from me so far, but of course wait and see what happens after the chip actually releases, we've got a full suite of reviews, and hopefully after we manage to get a look at it ourselves. Anyway, as I said, we're going to end things out here with something from Sega. Now for Nintendo, the NES Mini and SNES Mini have basically been a license to print money. But Sega took the opportunity of the 30th anniversary of the Mega Drive, or the Genesis, depending on your preference. Obviously for me it was Mega Drive. But they basically unveiled a classic edition of the Genesis / Mega Drive, depending on your preference, called the Mega Drive Mini. Now this is going to come out in 2018 in Japan at least. Now we don't know as of yet whether or not this is going to be coming out in the West. For the moment, all we know is that it is coming out in Japan. Now if it does well in Japan, I would expect it to release here in the West, but we'll have to wait and see. But you're probably thinking, hang on, wasn't there something already like this called, you know, the Flashback, or the Sega Genesis Flashback HD, that kind of didn't do that brilliantly in reviews? And the answer is yes. So the question at the moment is whether or not they're just re-releasing that under their moniker, minus the logo of At Games, who of course developed the Mega Drive Flashback. There is actually an interview with Sankai.com, and I will link the Google translated version of that in the description below this video, which does at least suggest that what Sega is doing here is simply distributing the Mega Drive Flashback, which again did not review all that well. But what Sega showed at this fan event where they announced this didn't actually look like the thing that At Games developed. It is smaller, it's missing the full-size cartridge post, and also has the original volume slider that you may recall from the original console. So this is pure speculation at this point. All we know is that the Mega Drive Mini is a thing that exists. We don't know the specifications of it, we don't know the quality, we don't know the software emulation, we don't know what games will be included, we don't know the release date, we don't know the price, we don't know if it's coming out in the US or the rest of the world other than Japan. Hopefully it is, and hopefully it's a one made by Sega or a different company than the one previous, so we get an actual high quality mini Sega Mega Drive, because I would be all over that. Like, Mega Drive was my jam back in the day, like, you know, Golden Axe, Streets of Rage and all of that. Oh, I could play the Aladdin game again. Hopefully the Aladdin game's on it. That'd be great. I could skip past that level with Jafar and Iago on that weird spinning thing like I always did. Memories. Anyway, that's me done for this video. Thank you very much for watching. Do remember to like and subscribe. As always, it does help us out a great deal. I'll see you next time.